Welcome once again, brother, to part 2 of the antitypical Jacob's return home. As we can see in the picture here, this was quite an exciting yet troubling time for Jacob as he was heading back home to the Promised Land after his 20-year journey into a foreign land that had him earn his wives. I guess it ended up being wives. But so we're going to continue with the part 1, which we're looking at the two different camps. We're trying to find out, which camp is right. Is Ezekiel 9 in the timeline of events? Is that going to be prior to Ezekiel 9, the church judgments, the SDA church judgment, or is that going to be after the Ezekiel 9 SDA church judgment? And so we've gotten a lot of information on part 1 with regards to the type. We know from studying the message, excuse me, that as you can see in this picture, he is physically on his way home. And way back in here, close to 300 miles back here, he had been on his journey, and then he experiences his time of trouble. So we keep emphasizing this fact because, as we read in part 1, that where there's no type, there's no truth. And the type of Jacob's time of trouble clearly shows us that Jacob experienced this well on his traveling path to the homeland. So this gives us strong clues about how the antitypical, which is what we're trying to find out, the 144,000, which the message tells us is the antitypical Jacob, will be experiencing the same trouble on their way to the Promised Land after the period when it comes. During that period, we're going to find that out. Hopefully, at the end of part 2, exactly the right timeline. So we prayed. We ask that you do the same. Claim the promise of John 16:13, and he will be faithful and guide us into all truth. Let's begin. All right, so let's now look at why we believe Camp 1 is correct. And that is that the type shows Jacob physically well on his way home when experiences Jacob's time of trouble. Thus, the 144,000 will be physically returning also. Number 2, they align with the fundamental beliefs of the present truth message, the summary pillars of our faith. Let's stop on this one for a second. So when we understand that the returning comes after Ezekiel 9, well, that aligns perfectly with the fundamental beliefs timeline. We'll show you that in just a second. They understand that the 144,000 comes into existence after Ezekiel 9 and not before, as Camp 2 says. So we pointed that out. Tract 38, page 1. Very clear. All right, so these are these important parts of our message, and these are based on the fundamental beliefs that we have as present truth believers. We are, to just briefly summarize here, we are Seventh-day Adventists, but we have advanced in our studies to become what is known as Davidian Seventh-day Adventist. Now, that title was given by the teacher and prophet that we believe is the Elijah that prophesies to come, Victor T. Houteff, back in the early 40s. He was given that name to this movement, which is called Davidian Seventh-day Adventist. Now, that's not to be confused with the imitation, fraudulent message that came from Ben Roden, and his message is called the Branch Davidian message. So Satan is sneaky. He used the very, very inspired word Davidian, and he put that in his message, and so that's what he does. Satan is sneaky. He put it Branch Davidian, and that's a total different message. So we didn't want people to be confused. If they're new to this and they're not quite understanding everything, they'll have a little better picture here. So in Fundamental Tract, page 12 to 13, this is the breakdown, and we can see Number 4 is clearly describing the destruction of the first fruits of the living results in purification of the church. That is Ezekiel 9. So let's keep it in mind. Number 4, Ezekiel 9. And then it says that immediately thereafter. Thereafter what? Well, that's obviously number 4. The angels cut loose the 4 winds, whereupon ensues the time of trouble, and Michael standing up to deliver from it, all whose names are written in the book of life. Daniel 12:1. And number 6, that the angels letting loose the 4 winds to blow over the 4 corners of the earth does not anticipate a world war, but rather a worldwide decree enforced throughout Babylon by the image beast, and that then no one may buy or sell save he who worships the image, Revelation 13:15-17. And then 7, it says that's subsequently. Subsequently to what? Well, that's these events here. In other words, Ezekiel 9, the winds being let loose, the winds predicting. This is nothing more than a prediction. Some brethren take this and say, see, the Sunday law starts immediately after Ezekiel 9. No, brother, we can't do that. This is a prediction. So number 6 is kind of a prediction, more or less, that these winds will resort in what's known as the worldwide decree enforced throughout Babylon by the image beast. So here we see that number 6 is telling us what's the reason for these winds. Well, they're going to ultimate. They're going to ultimate, and that means ultimately happen, that caused the worldwide decree, Sunday law, to be enforced around the world. Okay, so after number 7, subsequently, and that can only mean subsequently 4 and 5, the search purifications and the winds let loose, that the time of trouble, Jacob's trouble, Jeremiah 37, for 144,000, the sons of Jacob, logically develops on their way home to the land of their fathers, Ezekiel 36:28, 37:21, and 25. So we like this here because it shows the sequence and it describes it. Logically, what? Develops on their way home. Okay, so this is a development. In other words, just as in type, when Jacob and all the animals in the family and everybody began their journey, the trouble wasn't there at all. There was no worry. They were all excited to go back to their homeland. I'm sure they talked of the dreams and what they were going to experience back home and all these things. Now with all their riches and their livestock and all these wealthy things that they had on their possessions, they were going to use that in a good way to repopulate and enjoy the homeland again. But we know that it developed well into the travel. 300 some odd miles later, on his way, he developed that mental anguish. And so let's go to 10, and we skipped 8 and 9 because that's not this in our subject matter. But number 10, that with this sequence of events will ensure the loud cry of the angel that lightens the earth with his glory, Revelation 18:1. So we want to make these points because some brethren look at these fundamental points here and say, well, we're really not going to take them in order and all that. How can you do that, brethren? How can you do that when inspiration, it says and repeats that with this sequence of events? Okay, so we cannot slice and dice God's word. It's clearly explaining that this is a sequence. Jacob's time of trouble, number 7, comes after number 4, Ezekiel 9, church judgment. So this is why we say that this is grounded on the solid pillars of our fundamental beliefs. All right, so we're going to pause here, but these are some very important words also about this time of trouble. So here we see a great promise, and we notice that no longer shall the followers of truth serve others. Right now, with the problems that we have in America, we are limited, okay? The truth tellers, the ones that are striving to be among that number are limited. Why are they limited? Well, they're limited by the church leaders. The Seventh-day Adventist church leaders want us to shut up, okay? Any brother that goes and tries to talk about these things in the church, hey, let's discuss Ezekiel 9. Let's discuss the church purification. Let's discuss this kingdom to be set up in the Holy Land for the loud cry and all these things. The leaders will shut us down. So this is what it's talking about. No longer shall the followers of truth serve others. We have to serve our slave masters, the ones that are mutinous, okay? And then it will be that this will be a free yoke taken off our backs. Praise the Lord. Now, as we know, symbolic pictures are so helpful, as the message says, and this is one of the famous charts, the harvest period and the close of probation. And we want to emphasize this timeline. Well, we see here the Ezekiel 9, the slain of those who have not the seal, Testimonies 3, page 266, 267, and Ezekiel 9. So you can read those references to get better clarity here. So, right here, Ezekiel 9. Now, in this short path right here is that time of experiencing Jacob's trouble. All right? So right in here is when that path happens for Jacob's time of trouble. So it's right after Ezekiel 9 as they head back home to the homeland. So this one here, we just want you to read this real quick. We'll pause for a second. Basically re-emphasizing that we need faith, and this is how we're going to make it. If we don't have faith, then we're going to be in deep trouble. So this lesson of Jacob's returning shows us that we must have faith, because one of the things is we already know what's going to happen. Jacob didn't know what's going to happen, but we have the benefit of hindsight of knowing that which happened to Jacob. So this is we'll expand a little bit more on this as we go. All right, so once we understand Camp 1's view, which is, we believe, the correct view, let's look at Camp 2's a little bit better here and try to understand why they make such a mistake in this understanding. And this is a publication, written report from one of the Camp 2 brethren that we got a hold of. And we'll read it real quick. How can Jacob's time of trouble take place after the purification of the church when there will be no, quote, Esau to confront us and no threat? It is called Jacob's trouble because Jacob of old was fearful to meet his brother Esau. Thus it must be so today. Antitypical Jacob must have to face antitypical Esau with a threat of death against him. That cannot occur after antitypical Esau, our false brethren, have been removed in the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. Oh, brethren, when I saw this, I says, wow, what a messed up statement this is, and what some messed up points here. And we'll go into that, and we'll show you how this is just really not based on the sure word of prophecy. All right, so let's highlight something. Antitypical Jacob must have to face antitypical Esau with a threat of death against him. Huh? That was not the type. Okay, brother, I want to point this out. Where did these people get this idea that Esau had a death threat against him? No such thing existed, brethren. Esau never sent word that he's going to do any physical harm to Jacob. That is the type. This is nothing but a figment of the imagination, false ideas. There was never any type, anything with Jacob that Esau physically threatened him. Where was the threat? It was from Jacob's mind. Jacob was unnecessarily worrying because he assumed the worst. He knew about the history, how he tricked and became the first one of the family and the birthright from Esau. And he knew all this family stuff. So therefore he surmised that Esau wanted to get the revenge. But it was nothing more than a surmising. Okay? So this right here, brethren, don't be fooled by any brother that says, well, there's got to be a threat, so the Esau's aren't going to be around. How can that threat come? This is foolishness, brethren, foolishness. So where does this foolish idea come from? Well, it comes from a misunderstanding of the message, and we'll explain. So in Shepherd's Rod, Volume 1, at page 62, it reads, Jacob's wrestling with the angel typifies the time of Jacob's trouble for the church. Now keep that in mind, for the church. Okay, so Brother Hodoff in 1930 put in parentheses, for the church. We read in early writings, page 36-37, a decree went forth to slay the saints, which caused them to cry and night for to cry. It should be day and night. Cry day and night for deliverance. This was the time of Jacob's trouble. See Patriots and Prophets, page 202 and 203. And this quote can be found in Shepherd's Rod, Volume 1, page 62, 1930. Now, take a look at here. 1930. This was the very beginning of the message. Very, very beginning. First book of the message, okay? What does that tell you? The message was just beginning. The light was just now coming to Brother Hodoff. And we'll see that this all can be explained. And it was repeated again on this trying and testing time. The Spirit of Prophecy comments, a decree went forth to slay the saints, which caused them to cry day and night for deliverance. Yeah, they made a mistake up here in this reference. This was the time of Jacob's trouble. Early writings, page 36-37. See also Patriarchs and Prophets, page 202 and 203. Okay, so this was in Shepherd's Rod Tract, page 36. Again, 1930. But here's the tricky part. Revised when? 1945. Now, 1945, the kingdom light had already been known. I believe that came in the late 30s, if I recall, that the kingdom light came to Brother Hodoff. By that I mean the understanding of the premillennial kingdom, the loud cry headquarters to be set up in Israel. That light came. But at this time in 1930 did not have that light. And also we noticed that this was repeated when the light was already known. So why did Brother Hodoff repeat this in Shepherd's Rod Tract, which was revised 1945, and leave that in there when he knew that this wasn't applicable to the 144,000, the antitypical Jacob? Well, why did he do that? Well, it's easy, brethren. Basically, he was repeating, again, what the comment said, but you notice something? He took out for the church. In this repeat reference, there's no longer for the church. So Brother Hodoff was putting this in the right context. Hey, we cannot believe this to be for the church. There's new light. So this is very key here. But let's look at the next slide. I want to show you what Inspired Counsel says. This explains it all. There are circumstances in connection with certain aspects of every message which necessitates clarification. Such clarification, however, can be no greater than the light which shines at the time. And the light may come solely from within the message itself, or again, it may derive from a limited understanding common to the time then present. Any understanding which the messenger himself shares. So there we go, brethren. In 1930, Brother Hodoff was just repeating the then common understanding, and that was from Spirit of Prophecy. So he was applying that in the context that it was understood. So let's keep that in mind, that we have to leave it under the context. We can't take that out and apply that to, we can't make the old light, how do I want to say it? The old light take over the new light. All right, so that brings us to our next question, understanding the Camp 2's mistakes. And that is that Esau's will exist after Ezekiel 9. So we remember in that comment from the brother, how can there be any Ezekiels when they're all taken out by the church purification? In other words, the brethren in the church would be all eliminated. So how can they come against us after Ezekiel 9? Well, first of all, we show that they're not going to come against us with a death decree, so that's false. But the second thing is, The rod makes it clear, yes, there will be church members in the SDA church that will be alive after Ezekiel.